I'm Em Sauter, better known as Pints and Panels.
And I am Don Tess, better known as the Dawn of Beer.
Welcome to episode 59 of the All About Beer podcast. Every 2 weeks, we talk with leading experts and take a deep dive into one topic in beer. This week on the show, we'll be talking with why breweries rebrand their packaging and the art of how it's done. Visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And if you're feeling generous, please visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/allaboutbeer to support this show and others. So, Don, do you have a favorite rebrand? Maybe?
Well, I used to refer to myself as Beery Dawn, and now I go by the Dawn
Wait,
of
no,
Beer,
you
which I think is,
didn't.
yeah, so I
Wait,
think that's a
really?
much better brand.
You originally started out as Beery Don?
Correct.
For
Yeah. Isn't
real?
that
Because
terrible? Isn't
sometimes I
that
don't know if
terrible?
sometimes I never know if you're telling the truth or not.
I never joke about anything, Em.
Oh, wait. Oh, yes, of course. You're very sweet.
Um, but I think you're talking about the beer space. And I think that's a better question for you because you're the artist, and you probably understand and appreciate some of the effect of subtle changes that people do in the rebrand. So I don't know. I want to return that question on you.
I was just thinking the New Belgium just posted on social media about their like many years of being about since they've been around for a very long time, and they
Yeah.
showed the subtle differences between like tweaking the bike and then the changing of the color like slightly, and it was really really fascinating. If it's still up on, I'm assuming it's still up on social. I highly recommend people go look at it, because it shows the step by step of like how it's just like just a little tweak here and a little tweak there, and it keeps you fresh, it keeps you new, and
Yep.
and hip, yes,
Yeah.
and it's just really cool. So, and I'm really excited to talk with all of our guests today about rebrands, why it happens, all this stuff. So,
And why we should care.
and why we should care. It's important.
Yeah.
But first, if you would like to help support the All About Beer podcast, reach out to podcast@allaboutbeer.com. Speaking of supporting the show, here is a word from our sponsor.
Looking to explore a new city with a vibrant beer scene? Put Rochester, New York at the top of your list. Located in the Finger Lakes region along Lake Ontario, Rochester is a top beer destination, home to over 2 dozen breweries, including New York State's oldest, Genesee Brewing. Enjoy everything from hazy IPAs to crisp lagers, award-winning breweries, beer festivals, and tasting events all year long. There's always something fresh on tap in Rochester. Start planning your trip today at visitrochester.com. Estrella Galicia, where brewing excellence has been a family tradition since 1906. They're all about lager, rooted in German brewing heritage. Maintaining their commitment to tradition, they brew exclusively in their original brewery in La Coruña, Spain. Each beer boasts its own distinctive recipe. No shortcuts, no compromises. They shun high gravity tricks and avoid additives, even in their alcohol free beers, and stick firmly to traditional methods. Their passion for beer sets them apart as they embrace and celebrate the art of brewing. At Estrella Galicia, they love beer above all things. Experience the difference and know more about them by visiting Instagram at Estrella Galicia USA.
Nolan Strauss directs, designs, writes, illustrates, strategizes, and lots more. Over the years, his clients have included craft brewers, film festivals, the New York Times, bands ranging from Future Islands to John Legend to The Roots, and most
Wow.
recently, a THC seltzer company. His work balances the visceral and the intellectual with a good bit of humor and wit snuck in as well. Welcome to the show, Nolan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, I guess the first question I have is why would a brewery want a rebrand and what are its purposes? I know
Um,
that's broad, super broad.
yeah. In my experience, with the two rebrands that I've done, and I feel like with a lot of the ones I've seen like in market, it's that like a brand has been around like for a while, and like companies change, like their ownership or like their culture, or like over time they get a better sense of like who they are, or who they have like evolved like into. um and I feel like that can be a driver, uh, but I think a lot of rebrands, particularly post-pandemic, it is all about let's make sure like that our products are recognizable as like our products like at a glance. Um, uh, During like the pandemic, it seemed like buyers were spending less time like physically like in like the store, and so like they were
Mm.
looking for stuff that they instantly like could recognize, and I feel like that habit has continued.
Mm.
To some, I think rebrands can look like a cry for help or
Yes.
or the symbol that the brewery is struggling and they're like, "Oh fuck, like we gotta change everything or else we're gonna, things are bad." Is there any truth to that or is that just me being a pessimist?
I mean, like when Anchor Steam did like their rebrand,
Yes.
it was nice. It looked good, but it didn't look like them. Um, and it felt like the second that I saw it, like my first thought was this legacy brand feels like they are losing market share. And so we're going to do a streamlined can and it's going to be bright yellow and it's going to have almost nothing on it. And that's going to like appeal to like the kids. And
Kids love
uh,
California Common, they just
yeah,
Gen Z loves Cali Common.
yeah, like oh, it's stripped down. It's going to look like those like chill seltzers, and it's like
Oh my God.
Mm.
um,
Um,
yeah.
no, okay, I didn't want to interrupt you there. Like, you're giving a bad example, like, uh, but other than desperation, why might a brewery want to do a rebrand?
Um,
Presumably, it's not always desperation.
no, no,
I'm trying to
no.
be positive here.
Yeah, yeah. No, uh with like 2SP when I did theirs, uh uh they were um they'd started, hold on. I'm gonna start over. With 2SP, when I did theirs, they were having a pretty good presence within the Philadelphia market, but like because all of their cans each looked wildly different.
Mm,
I think that people like were overlooking them and like they really wanted to make sure, oh, hey, if you love our hazy, like these same people, like they also have a like Vienna lager, or they also have a um like uh like a golden ale, or all these other styles that they do so well, but those other cans all looked radically different, like from one
right,
another.
right.
Um, and I mean, I really, so in their case, like I think that's why. Um, the other thing that I've seen, um, so when I did like the refresh, like for Union Craft Brewing from Baltimore, they didn't want to redo like everything. They just wanted like to do it better, like keep the same bones, but like make it feel like a little more contemporary. And I think a big part of that was because like they were one of the older brewers within that scene. And in like the last few years, more brewers had popped up throughout Maryland. And and I think like they just wanted like to make sure like they still looked and felt like relevant
Mhm.
to like the market.
Hmm. So, your aesthetic is to kind of declutter, which is very popular now. Nice,
Mhm.
clean lines. Wh
Yeah.
why do you think that is? Why do you think that works? And how do you tell a brand story with simplicity?
Um, well, so well, my personal style, like outside of beer cans, is very much like pack tiny, cool details and hidden Easter eggs, like into
Right.
everything. But with cans, like like I'm um I don't think of it as simplifying as much as distilling.
Ah,
Like like what are the key visuals, the key elements? Like this can, it currently has like 12 different things going on, but what are the ones people actually like remember? Or like what like are the ones that are telling the story or like expressive of who you are, what your perspective is. Um, and so let's get rid of like all the noise. Um, um, and let's distill your personality down to like the key elements. Um, and since there are so many brands out there and you're always fighting for shelf space, um, people are going to look like at your can for like a quarter second. And so
mhm.
you have to tell a story really quickly. So like let's make sure we're only um like we don't have to have the can be a like a novel. It can just like be an outline.
Right, right. Like
Do
the
you,
table of contents,
yeah,
kind of.
I don't
Yeah.
know, but do
Yeah.
you think this current aesthetic takes away from your own personal style and art's ornate history? I know a lot of people like kind of rail against, look at everything 100 years ago had ornate flowers and the Art Deco movement, and now everything's just line art.
Yeah.
Mm,
Or do you see inspiration from the past? Like I think of that old is new again aesthetic of like the Miller Lite can
Yeah.
is
Uh,
just so, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know how one balances that when doing beer art as someone who's an artist.
um, so I feel like much of my work, like it does draw like from like the mid-century, um, um, like from like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Mhm.
And those often were very like ornate or and that was this era with lots of like ornate packaging design, like no matter the product. Um and it's honestly, sorry, I started answering before I started thinking. I'm good. Um, could you ask the question like
Oh yeah,
again?
sure.
No.
So do you think, I was gonna say, do you think that the stripped down version of everything, because I look at beer labels now or beer art now, and it's that like that very simple line art.
Mhm.
Um, do you think that takes away as an artist anything? Or do you see it more as an inspiration for like the cans of the past, the Miller Lite cans, the High Lifes, the simplicity of the macro, and how a lot of people now, when they make macro lagers, kind of mimic that style? So I don't know if like, I guess actually my question is, I don't really have a question either. I guess my question is, do you have an opinion about, do you miss ornateness being an artist, or are you leaning into inspiration from macro of the past? That's a
Um,
question. There we go.
um, and my answer is going to be sort of vague, like maybe frustrating. Like it depends on like the context. Um, 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 this wasn't a refresh, but it was just a like new brand. When I did the branding for Zadie's Lager, they from the jump before they had like brewed a drop said this is going to be a like a grandpa beer. So we want it to like be red and gold and white, like and look like it's from the mid-century. But in regards to like ornate cans, like from the past, I love those cans, and I take a lot like of inspiration from history. Like I have so many pictures from eBay from like history sites of like beer cans like from the past.
Mm.
Uh, but what I like to do is like pull details out of them. Like pull, here's a great idea hidden within like all that noise. Um, um, and I don't think it was noise then, but it comes across like as noise now. This is going to sound like so corny, but because our lives are so fast paced, um,
Mm.
um, that I think that because of that, these things that are more stripped down are like just resonating more or they hit faster.
Mm.
I don't necessarily, wow, I was about to go all over the place there.
No, no, you're no,
I love it because this
I
is
get
shows
it.
the complexity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like despite stripping things down, I still like to hide details or like find a way to tell a story so that like from a distance, like that can like it's going like to scream at you. But then like when you walk up to it, it has like small details like they're going like to whisper to you. And
Ah.
um um and and something I always think about like is like for the 5 to 30 minutes it's going to take me to drink that beer, I'm going to look at that can a lot. I want to make sure that um um that if I'm looking back at it, there are like interesting little things um because like that's part of like the experience. Like I feel like most people when they drink from a can, like they look at the can a lot. Um, and so like how can the can be an like experience like that like adds to the drinking? And so like the front could be like really simple, but then like you spin it and then oh, here's like some clever copywriting or like here's an like illustrative element with more detail like than what like was on the front. Um, um, I like to think of cans as having three sides, and one side has to work really hard, and the other two sides have to work a little bit. That work being selling the product when it's like on the shelf. Uh, but I feel like the primary job of the other two sides like is like to entertain, like
Mm.
is like to tell a story, is to make it not boring to hold this thing for however long.
I love that.
Thanks.
Um, You kind of touched upon how, the importance of having a consistent look among cans. And so how do you like for the various beers from one brewery? So how do you ride that line between, creating that consistent look and yet, that the Vienna lager, to use your example, it needs to be clearly different from the hazy IPA. So when you do a design, are you already thinking about how you're going to vary it, or does the variation come later? I don't know, I'm sort of rambling. How do you ride
No,
that
no,
line?
no. It's a tough question, and I feel like for like different brewers, like there's different answers. Or like for I feel like for different brands, there are different answers. So, um, knowing that they want to keep it consistent, um, um, without being like rote or feeling too templated, um, or s stale. Like for me, I always think like of typography first. One, because like I'm a type nerd, and two, because that's the name, like that, like is what people like, are going like to look for. And so, um, um, I think it's really crucial. Like I probably spend just as much time figuring out what the type style will be, um, like as I do like the rest of the can, because it needs to be recognizable, be repeatable. But yeah, it needs to have like a different character from the Pilsner to the West Coast IPA, to like whatever else. Um, um, and so figuring out I mean, it's a really complex process that mostly happens deep in the recesses like of my brain.
Okay.
Uh, um, uh, um, I've been lucky that both of the brands I like have refreshed. I am intimately like familiar with, like I know the people like, who founded it. I've spent like lots of time at like their breweries, and so I know who they are. Like like I know like their cultures. Um, um, and so it's trying to find a type style or like an illustration style that reflects who the people are, but but is a but is itself flexible enough to cover this broad swath like of styles like that they
Mhm.
might like be creating. I kind of rambled a lot there. Sorry.
No, that was cool.
No.
No, I could tell there was a lot of thinking, which is
Yeah.
the point, is we want people to appreciate what you're doing. So
And I've got a final question for you, and you've actually been talking about this a little. A lot of people look at can designs, especially the like clean, simplistic ones, and they're like, I could do that. You know, you picked a font, you wrote words, whatever, big deal. What do you wish people understood and appreciated about design?
Um, well, um, good design is not just pretty. Like good design is as like intellectual, like as it is like visual. And um and like it takes a lot like of smarts, because I'm a smarts person. It takes like a lot of smarts to distilled this group of visual cues and visual references that hundreds of thousands of consumers are going to look at, um, and without having to think about it, quote unquote, they're going to get it.
Mhm.
And you're going to have distilled the spirit of this brand, um, um, through visual signifiers, um, like like in such a way that they saw the can for a half second, in the cooler, and they understood who that brand is, and what they're about. And you don't get that type of resonance and that type of success by, well, these are the fonts that are trending on Instagram
Mhm.
this month, and like here's some random colors. Um, I wish people realized design is very thoughtful. Um, it's very time consuming. Um, um, and um, at least in my own practice, like it's very human. There's a lot of empathy that goes into it.
Yes, I know this.
I like that a lot.
Because it's function. It's art, but it's also you've got a lot to get across.
Right.
And people need to be able to, yeah, you're selling something, but it's also artistic. And how do you do that? And as a designer, it can be very difficult. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Well, and something that I also think about as a visual person and as a person who likes stuff, my house is full of stuff, um, is I want to make a can that people are going to feel cool, holding it. Um, um, or that they're gonna be happy to see it in their cooler, or in their fridge.
Like it
Uh,
says something about the drinker as well. Is that what you mean?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool. I like that.
yeah, yeah, appealing to the vanity of the drinker is definitely part of the equation.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
hmm. Yeah, I guess I don't haven't, yeah, because there's so many factors that go into it and coolness and, reaching into at a party, there's a lot of beer in a fridge and having that design where someone's like, yes, and maybe they don't even know what it is, but they're like, I'm in.
Right,
Beer
right.
has, with so many brands on the shelves, that's a very important factor to have. And yeah, it's something to definitely think on when you are designing, because how many beers are on a shelf now?
Yeah,
And that's why people rebrand.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a like, oh no, we need to stand out and we want people to pick up the beer and go, all right, this is what I want to drink. And
yeah.
the art, yeah. So I get it. I get it. And the stuff you did for 2SB and Union look really great. So I wanted to
Thank you.
say that while you were on the show.
I
Uh,
appreciate it.
if people want to get in touch with you and talk art and decluttering and give you work or whatever,
I
how do
am looking
people,
for work.
every artist always looking for work. Um, how do people reach out to you? Email, social media, website?
My website, or my Instagram. My website is nolanstrolls.com. It is not going to be spelled how you think it is, thanks
Oh.
to my Dutch grandfather. Um, um, well, sorry, that's a whole sidebar. So let me say all that again. Uh, the best way to reach me is through my website, uh, nolanstraws.com, or on like an Instagram at Nolan, like a underscore straws. And that's Nolan spelled with like an E instead of an A.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Great. Nolan, thank you so much for your insight about design. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Yeah, cheers. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And we'll be right back with Craig Mykowski and Billy Rudolph of Round Trip Brewing Company right after these messages.
Looking to explore a new city with a vibrant beer scene? Put Rochester, New York at the top of your list. Located in the Finger Lakes region along Lake Ontario, Rochester is a top beer destination, home to over 24 breweries, including New York State's oldest, Genesee Brewing. Enjoy everything from hazy IPAs to crisp lagers, award-winning breweries, beer festivals, and tasting events all year long. There's always something fresh on tap in Rochester. Start planning your trip today at visitrochester.com. Estrella Galicia, where brewing excellence has been a family tradition since 1906. They're all about lager, rooted in German brewing heritage. Maintaining their commitment to tradition, they brew exclusively in their original brewery in La Coruña, Spain. Each beer boasts its own distinctive recipe. No shortcuts, no compromises. They shun high gravity tricks and avoid additives, even in their alcohol free beers, and stick firmly to traditional methods. Their passion for beer sets them apart as they embrace and celebrate the art of brewing. At Estrella Galicia, they love beer above all things. Experience the difference and know more about them by visiting Instagram at Estrella Galicia USA.
In 2007, Craig Mykowski moved across the country from Athens, Georgia to Denver, where he entered the beer industry at Wynkoop Brewing Company. After filling in science gaps at Siebel's World Brewing Academy, he took a job in Texas at Rahr & Sons, eventually holding the role of VP of Operations. A move to Austin came in 2007 as he was recruited to be the head brewer and director of ops at the reincarnated Celis Brewing Company. The next year, his wife convinced him to start his own brewery, which they now operate in Atlanta, Georgia. Round Trip Brewing Company opened in February of 2021. As an Atlanta native, Billy Rudolph serves as the marketing director at Round Trip Brewing Company. Pre-pandemic, he spent 13 years in the global mobile tech industry space while also traveling the world seeking out great beer. Welcome to the show, Craig and Billy.
Good to be here.
So, Craig, let's start with you. How long has Round Trip been around? And like, how long was there a point in your life where you were like, man, we got to do a rebrand? Or like, how did it come about?
Yeah, so Round Trip's been around since we opened the doors February of 2021.
Oh, okay. So
About
it's you
about
guys are pretty
Relatively
new.
new.
Yeah.
yeah, still pretty new. I mean, we would have been open 6 months earlier, but there was this whole, I don't know if you heard about it, this pandemic that
Wait,
happened.
what?
But yeah, it's
Oh,
crazy.
I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, nobody saw anybody's
Yeah.
faces because they were all covered up. It was great to see people smile again one day. But yeah, we had a logo that we started with. Here named Dave Kuhn, which Billy knows personally. He got us set up with our original logo, and it works. It was a great thing to get started with. We were, and Billy will go into this more, I'm sure, but just looking for something that one had some more elements to it that we could work with, and also told our story holistically, not just something that looks good, but something that we can really use to say who we are, this is what we do, this is where we're going, that sort of thing.
So why did you think it was important to do this? Like at no point did you just mention the liquid in the can, for example. So for
Yeah,
the
hopefully the
cynics
liquid's all
among
good,
us,
and that's
yeah.
and that's my job, the liquid in the can, and Billy's job is to make sure that it sells out there. So, I mean, Billy can go into that more, but Billy's really the one that pushes that. Hey, we need to do this, and was probably
Okay.
pushing us for about a year to
Or
say, hey, we
or
need to
maybe
really
more.
start looking at, yeah, really start looking at making a change. And of course, you look at everything when you're, I was coming from just being the brewer previous jobs, and now as the owner of the whole business, you look at, hey, is the right time? Hey, do we have money for this? But also, when you're thinking about that, you're like, hey, if we don't do this, then do we lose money? So I mean, can't like, I mean, you got to think about the whole big picture when we're looking at doing this and when's the right time.
Like what are
Yeah.
the indicators there? And maybe, yeah, Billy, because again, you're like when this process started, you were only 2 years old. So
Well, yeah, let me kind of back up and just kind of say where we're coming from a little bit. So, we when we started, we were opening the brewery. We had the concept of what our name would be, and then not much else beyond that. And we had a shoestring budget. So I think when I didn't have, from the marketing perspective as a marketing guy, like I didn't have a lot to work with. From a branding point of view. We had a logo, we had a couple colors, and end of story. So we were starting the process to open a second tap room, and I'm like, there is no way that I have what I need to have to kind of build out the brand or have a second tap room under this current brand.
I
So
see.
that's when like the rebranding started, and we kind of started pulling the trigger. We have been talking with designers on different ideas on what we could do, and kind of what Craig said, just looked at it holistically, and who are we as a company, who are we as a brewery, what do we want our brand to represent and to come through, and that's where we really wanted to lean in a little bit more into the German aspect of our beer and the travel aspect of our brand. And so we found kind of a nice middle ground that kind of accomplished all that, and then we can kind of flow that into merch and new packaging design, which will hopefully come out early 2025. So yeah, it's been kind of an exciting journey, kind of just building it out.
Yeah, cool. I like that.
You Craig mentioned it earlier, but Billy, were you your personal friends with the designer? Is that how you guys got
The,
hooked up,
the first
or
designer, yeah, is a buddy of mine, and he does a lot of graphic design for restaurants, and he's done a few different kind of small batch liqueur. But that's his job. We actually have a different designer that we worked with for the rebrand. It was a guy named Drew who's from Texas and had worked on a lot of different Texas-based breweries, and he's, I guess, in Southern California now. But he kind of had the beat of what breweries are looking for, and that was really important to us because, especially when it comes to like packaging design, you could get a great designer, but if they don't know just basic dimensions of design on a can and what would look good, then it's not going to work out. So finding someone who already knew that and had that base level of understanding was important to us.
did he come to you with like how does it work? So you want to rebrand? Does he come with you to like with
Well,
roughs, or is he showing you full stuff and you're like, no, do this? Like how long does something like this, the process take?
oh man, it took forever.
Yeah, it does take forever.
We found him. Craig's wife Amy found him like or found a beer garden in Austin that she really liked and found out who did the branding for it. And then we just had been talking to this guy for a while, and when we were ready to kind of get the project started in earnest, we sent him like we gave him all of our ideas. We had a lot of conversations about who we are as a company and what we wanted to represent. And then that's when he and one of his partners just gave a big like here's several different strategic directions that you can go in. And we weren't initially going to redo the logo. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we should. And that was his recommendation. And then what he had sent, we didn't actually like, and he comes back and they had the logo that we ended up using and we absolutely loved it. And I still really like it a lot. But yeah, it was just kind of listening to what we are as a brewery, and they did a lot of research on the Atlanta market for other breweries and didn't want us to look similar to anyone else. So yeah, there was kind of a lot of back and forth going on that.
Hmm. Um, you kind of touched upon what the benefit is from the brewer's perspective, better telling your story, standing out from others in the Atlanta market and all that. Do you think like why do you think branding and rebranding is important for consumers? Do they get excited about it? Do they understand your message better? Maybe I'll ask Craig that.
I think I mean rebranding's not always the answer. For us, I think it was we needed tools to get that message out there and really show who we are as a company. And so you know I would never say I would never go to someone and tell them how to do their brand, but for us it felt like we needed to expand on what we currently have, and then in order to do that, we kind of had to tear the house down and start from scratch.
Yeah, and like what Billy was saying, I mean, the initial plan was actually to just kind of have our original logo and add on to it. But as we got further into this, we realized that we kind of needed to be able to build in the other elements which we needed. So there's all these ancillary elements that we'll kind of use in different ways. The only way to really get to that final result was to kind of do a complete rebrand.
I see.
But as far as the consumer goes, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're all consumers here, right? And so
Yep.
when you see
We
some
sure
cool
are.
new packaging, I mean, it's you do, first of all, you'll probably judge it and say if you like it or not, which we've seen on Reddit. If you ever look at Reddit threads
Okay.
and whenever a brewery, your favorite brewery does a rebrand, you'll see what everybody thinks about it. Thankfully, ours was positive on those message boards when stuff came out, but it does generate new interest and the brand, and I think people take notice, especially if hopefully it looks good and it resonates.
There anything else like effects of this rebrand that you're enjoying? Like, have you noticed any? I know that you said the cans aren't out till next year. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I just submitted the labels for a couple of them for TTB. So yeah, we're gonna start in January to roll those out.
I mean, that's really cool.
I,
So
I
like,
mean, no, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna like, my question was just like, what is there any, since cans aren't out, like you haven't noticed any like sales increased but because some of the things have changed, is there more consumer engagement on social media? Is there like more positives that you're seeing to
Maybe
this
even
rebrand?
merch sales.
Yeah,
Yeah,
merch.
well, all that's about to come. So,
Yeah.
all that's really rolled out right now is the digital stuff. And actually, this morning we were talking about some of the new merch we're about to order, and plus the can design. So a lot of the stuff is the initial stuff has been released. Some of the digital stuff, I think we have new things up online, and then now comes we're going to start bringing out more and more physical things.
Yeah, and I would just say that right now it's so much easier to tell our story. And for someone, and this is where you want the consumer and that flash second to be able to look at your logo, look and see what you're all about, all in that 1 second. And I think that that's just been so much easier to do with kind of the brand that we have now. And that someone can see there's travel components and exploration that we really like. There's a German beer component, and having like traditional style lagers for the most part. So like that, I think is going to, the more we're able to keep going on that, I think it's really going to translate well, and people will kind of set us out as opposed to just being like an also ran brewery that has the same type of branding or logo.
Have you noticed any other breweries in the area, like in Atlanta, are just doing a lot of rebrands? And like, what do you guys think about other breweries that rebrand? Is it like, oh, they're just trying to change it up? Or we were talking with a designer before this, and we were discussing how sometimes rebrands are like a cry for help.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I could see that. Yeah.
when you said that, I was thinking there was a brewery that was around the corner from us that closed last year, I believe, called Second Self. And I guess they rebranded within like, the last couple years of them closing. Maybe that was the case with them. I could be wrong about that. There's been a couple other breweries, but I don't know. I think like there's a lot less focus on distribution in cans right now. That
Mm,
maybe there's the fewer breweries are rebranding as a whole. Um, I'm trying to think of some others that have done it recently, but yeah, I don't think it's a massive trend right now in Atlanta.
okay. I guess my final question is, you just went through the entire experience, both of you, of rebranding. Is there any lessons you learned about do's and don'ts, and that, advice you could give to breweries or companies that may be starting on this journey?
Um, I mean, I think you have to look inward and outwardly when you're going through the process. I mean, we wanted something that, yes, look good for consumers, something, new, fresh, t tells our brand, but also we wanted to make sure that it felt good internally too, because the internal um vibe of what's going on in the brewery is what drives us every day. And if we don't feel good, about something that is outwardly expressing, it's hard to keep that, energy going and, keep everything going in the right direction from, just the people that work for us.
Hmm.
I would just say that I wish that there are other factors, but I wish that our gradual rollout was a little quicker. It's, you put it out there and then you need merch and signage or whatever to offer people immediately. And we had very little of that. So
Uh,
that's been a slow process getting out there.
just building on what you both said, Craig and Billy, like, this rebrand occurred only or started only a couple years after you started. Any words of advice for new breweries on like initial branding? Do you feel like your initial branding maybe could have started better so it could have lasted longer? Or is this just natural evolution that after a couple years, as you grow, your story changes and so you have to rebrand?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so dependent on where you start, who did the first logo, I don't think there's an easy answer for that would cover, every brewery that opens. Sometimes it may just be a refresh of what you already have.
Yeah.
And I would say that actually our new horizontal logo that just has, round trip brewing, it wasn't too far of a departure what we had before also. So I mean, I just think it's so situational. I don't think I think you just have to decide in the moment and the circumstance if it's the right time for you.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think knowing after a few years, you kind of realize that the tools that you had just weren't working. Like it could, it could be the shape of the logo, it could be the colors that you chose, it could be any number of things. And that was just I personally was running into a lot of roadblocks with like, I can't design things around this, or this logo looks really bad in this particular canvas, whatever it is. It was a lot of that. And I think, having a little bit of brand flexibility when you start out would be, you want to be rigid in who you are, but, have like different options when you start out in case you need to uh, use a different element on a different piece or whatever it is.
I see.
For
I
sure.
never would have thought of that. So that's cool. Yeah.
Craig and Billy, thank you guys so much for coming on to talk about your rebrand. I'm excited to see the new cans early next year. The beer you guys make is excellent, so I will be
Thank you. I
asking.
wish I
I will
get
be.
that smoked doppelbock up with
Uh,
you, but
oh,
yeah, we don't distribute up there yet, unfortunately.
that's all right. I'm far away. I just bring me some at CBC and we'll be fine.
Got it.
If people want to learn more about the brewery, what are social media handles or websites? And then if they want to reach out to you, like an email or personal social media, what do you got?
So social media is Round Trip Beer on Instagram and I think all the other platforms that we have. It's roundtripbrewing.com is our website. And then Craig, if you want to give them your information or
Phone number?
social security number.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
Yeah, I think the best thing to just info@roundtripbrewing.com, and we'll send it to the best place for the question to go.
Welcome at roundtripbrewing.com.
Oh, sorry. See, I don't run that part of the business.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for coming on to chat today. And yeah, good luck with the rebrand.
It was a pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
So Don, what do you think about rebrands now? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was always vaguely aware of the importance of it, and obviously I noticed, oh, they rounded this corner or elongated the shape or whatever, and it's just interesting to hear professionals talk about the thinking behind it and the effect, like why it's important. What did you think?
I like how Billy, when we were talking about it with him, it's like, man, it takes a really long time because
Yeah.
art. I mean, as an artist, sorry, yeah. When I work with clients, like it's always like changing this, a little of this. You always want to make sure that everyone's happy on both sides. And with a rebrand, you're taking something that already exists and you're trying hard to make it better or trying really hard to
While paying homage too.
yeah.
Like,
And so there's so much, so it's really it's so you need a lot of attention to detail and patience. So I think about fun fact, Nolan did the new All About Beer logo, and which I think does a good job of paying homage to the former logo. It reminds me of the old logo, which is maybe I'm just
but is modern and clean too.
but is modern and clean. So, and because so it's nice to see like things go. I don't know what I'm talking about now. I'm just happy that we're talking about art.
Did you know, Matt, that in Canada the logo actually says all about beer?
Now you're lying. Oh, Don. All right. Visit allaboutbeer.com and please follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And once again, if you're feeling generous, please visit patreon.com/allaboutbeer to support this show and others. If you have questions for the experts, email podcast@allaboutbeer.com. That's also the email for feedback, suggestions, or to inquire about supporting this show through advertising. Don, how can people reach out to you?
I am at the Dawn of Beer on X, Threads, and Instagram. I'm also on Blue Sky, but I can't remember the handle there. People can drop me an email at dawn@thedawnofbeer.com. How about yourself, Em?
I am at Pints and Panels across Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. And my website is www.pintsandpanels.com. If you enjoy this show, please share it with your friends. Post about it on social media and like and subscribe to the show. Please help us spread the word of good beer. And here is a final word from our sponsor.
Looking to explore a new city with a vibrant beer scene? Put Rochester, New York at the top of your list. Located in the Finger Lakes region along Lake Ontario, Rochester is a top beer destination, home to over 24 breweries, including New York State's oldest, Genesee Brewing. Enjoy everything from hazy IPAs to crisp lagers, award-winning breweries, beer festivals, and tasting events all year long. There's always something fresh on tap in Rochester. Start planning your trip today at visitrochester.com. Estrella Galicia, where brewing excellence has been a family tradition since 1906. They're all about lager, rooted in German brewing heritage. Maintaining their commitment to tradition, they brew exclusively in their original brewery in La Coruña, Spain. Each beer boasts its own distinctive recipe. No shortcuts, no compromises. They shun high-gravity tricks and avoid additives, even in their alcohol-free beers, and stick firmly to traditional methods. Their passion for beer sets them apart as they embrace and celebrate the art of brewing. At Estrella Galicia, they love beer above all things. Experience the difference and know more about them by visiting Instagram at Estrella Galicia USA.
This show is produced by All About Beer. Visit allaboutbeer.com for articles, notes on this show and others, and to connect via the social media and the newsletter. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Yay, art. It's nice to talk about art. I'm into it. Yay, art. Go art.
read all about beer.
Oh boy.